some cities like Sacramento are going to be smaller teams. Some cities like El Paso are going to have full support. But we still blew up a bank in
I
Sacramento.
know,
So
it's crazy. Right.
Welcome to Inside the Set with SETDECOR, a series that focuses on the design and decor of the stories that excite us and ignite our imagination, where we discuss the collaboration between set decorators and production designers and hear first-hand accounts of how these works of art came to be, from their inception, ideas on a page, to completion, when we get to sit in the dark and experience them collectively.
Welcome to Inside the Set with SETDECOR. I'm John Bush, SDSA, and today I'm thrilled to welcome set decorator Anthony Carlino SDSA and production designer Florencia Martin to discuss their amazing collaboration on One Battle After Another. Paul Thomas Anderson's powerful new film set in an American transformed into a tightly controlled fascist police state. While dramatic, One Battle After Another also leans into the comedic and the absurd, using bold, over-the-top satire to reflect the strange realities of where we are now and where we may be headed. Anthony and Florencia, welcome and thank you for joining me.
Thanks. Thank you.
thank you, John.
First off, I just want to say congratulations. I've seen this film twice, big fan. I made the mistake of seeing it on a school night at like Wednesday, and I was so keyed up to it and just excited about filmmaking that it was really hard to go to sleep. So thanks for taking us on this great, epic, fun adventure. So let's get into it. You guys both worked with Paul Thomas Anderson on Licorice Pizza. And how did you get into this project, Florencia? How were you brought in?
Paul reached out when he had a draft of the script in 2021. And it was very exciting because we had the entire story of what we were trying to do. And he had a pretty clear vision of how he wanted to start the prep process, which was to scout. So we went early in 2022 to Eureka with our first AD, Adam Somner. And then we scouted from north to Southern California, and discovered El Paso. So it was a really, boots on the ground experience.
Yeah, that's amazing to have that much prep. Anthony, when were you brought in?
It's interesting. I was working in Atlanta for a year and a half, and Flo had reached out and sent me the script, which the first draft that I read, I think Paul blew up everything. It was like massive. I remember I had done a preliminary budget. It was so expensive, and then so it kind of got brought back to reality a little bit.
Yeah.
But it seems like, Flo was scouting. You were scouting on this movie. It seems like almost for a year, if not longer, as soon as we finished Babylon. And at one point, I thought that I might not be available for it because I was in Atlanta. And with the writer's strike and everything, it kind of pushed. And fortunately, I was available. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. That's amazing to have that much prep. It's my understanding that, from when you read the script, you knew it was going to be a road movie. And with the foundation of it, with, like a visual authenticity. So what was your, basic approach? Because I'm just thinking about the logistics of this thing. You're in multiple time zones, you're in multiple jurisdictions, you have crews everywhere. What was your approach to tackling this beast? And Anthony, let me ask you first, did your background as a lead man help you in this?
I think so. But, Tyler Kenberg, who's my lead, who's been with me forever, it was a daunting task. It was, we prepped in LA for months and me and Flo were together, but kind of once we started filming, Flo was with the shooting company the majority of the time. And I was kind of always moving ahead. And logistically, it was hard because, we were in, I think, 9 different cities. And it was almost like we kind of phrase it kind of like military. because our base was in LA. My lead man never left LA, and then we would have crews that would start in Eureka, and then
Yeah.
once they finish there, they come back to LA and prep, and then I would see them like 3 cities later. So it was kind of this checkerboard thing.
Yeah.
It was kind of nice because, yeah, I would get one crew in Eureka, and then I wouldn't see them for 3 cities later in San Juan Bautista or Lompoc. So
Right.
yeah, logistically, it was a challenge setting up offices in new cities all the time. It was hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
working out of a lot of different types of dynamic situations, warehouses, storefronts, hotels. I remember Anthony always had like a new gold room or set deck office in the most interesting of places all the time.
Yeah.
But our approach, I mean, it's amazing because we didn't set up with an aesthetic approach for the film. We didn't have something. We let the locations and the people that we met kind of start to dictate what we were going to make with this film. When we started in Eureka, we went to Eureka High School, and they were really amicable to us. And every city that we went through, California and in El Paso, really, for the most part, everyone was very open door and letting us in and very curious about what we were doing.
Yeah.
And we started to just collect all of these stories and people and
Mhm.
places. So we went to the real high school dance,
Mhm.
and that became a little bit of like the anchor point of why are we trying to create fiction? Like what we're seeing in person here is
Mhm.
what is our current day state of affairs. Let's use this playlist. Let's use this real DJ.
Yeah.
Let's use this light system, because this is what high school in America looks like today. And so, to be able a part of a process, and like there's a story like that for every single set and every single city, where you are listening to the song that you saw firsthand, all these kids dancing, and that
Mhm.
the way that they talk and the way they sit in groups and the way that, we reached out to the kids at the high school and said, hey, let's have a pizza party. And they
Yeah.
made all the posters. I don't know, it
Right.
just starts to like impregnate the film with this real human quality. And then
Mm.
that became our anchoring point of who
Right.
are these characters, where did they come from, and what's their backstory. And that became a really beautiful collaboration with Anthony and I, because Anthony was really important to him to shop and source from each city that we were in.
Mhm.
And as we were scouting for locations, like Bob's house is like, oh, everybody has a plant collection. Everybody has a rock collection. Everyone has stained glass window details in their houses. And
Sure.
the redwood stump like came to life because of that, because everyone turns their redwoods into outhouses, and showers. It's like, wait, this is an amazing punctuation point. Where does Bob get his bag after this big tunnel escape?
Right.
Um, so then it was a really wonderful collaboration with Paul as well to have a very structured and incredible script, and know exactly what like these characters' intentions and paths were, but also the
Mm.
flexibility, as we visited locations and met people and saw these details of life, not only with Anthony, but also with the actors of just,
Mhm.
spending a lot of time with Leonardo DiCaprio and Sean Penn and Benicio del Toro and shaping
Yes.
what their backgrounds were and what their worlds look like.
Right. Yeah, that's a really amazing way to work. So collaborative,
Yeah.
especially with the environment, because you guys were creating amazing environments. They didn't feel like sets to me. It's always the biggest compliment when somebody walks in and says, "Oh, you just found a great location that's perfect for our filming." And it was like, no, no, we edited every square inch of this place, but I'm glad it feels natural to you.
Mhm.
Um, I wish we could talk about all the sets, but let's start with Bob's. Anthony, I have a question for you. So, I usually work with trying to find an anchor piece for character sets. Was there a specific one for Bob's in particular that you really felt like that's Bob?
Well, I mean, maybe his couch, it was, I
Yeah.
mean, Bob's story was, this kind of guy who's out in the redwoods protecting his daughter and
Yeah.
not much money, and everything kind of comes from a secondhand store. And every piece in that in Bob's house was found in Eureka.
Okay.
Facebook marketplace, thrift stores.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, maybe also the dining room table. It's interesting. You can't see much of it on film, but a couple days before we shot there, me and Flo just spent a day in that house detailing it together. And underneath the glass top in the dining room is all of Willa's artwork that she created at school. And that was kind of like, because he's kind of holding on to the past, and he doesn't want her to grow up, and it kind of that's all he's got.
Florencia, what about this house when you were location scouting really resonated with you that this is Bob's house?
The fact that it was so protected by redwoods, and we found another house we were very interested up the road. It was a yellow gingerbread house, and it was just too far stretched into fantasy. But
Mm-hmm.
the owner, a widow, showed us her property, and she collected miniature toy cars with her past husband. And it was the most unbelievable thing we'd ever seen. It was just an ocean of redwoods and moss and cars.
Yeah.
Uh, and so the combination of saying, okay, here we have this like small protected house. And then when Bob came on a scout with us, we took Bob and Willa up to Eureka before we
Yeah.
started shooting to
Yeah.
see their house. They saw two options, and they also really responded to this one, which was really important. Um, the fact that it had that connection of, again, like building the backstory for Bob. Like Bob
Mhm.
collects car parts, and this is his hustle job that, wouldn't allow him to be seen that much in society. And
Sure.
but so Anthony also did an amazing job of layering the house with parts from her backyard and
Yeah.
manuals underneath
Built
the bed.
books. Yeah.
Yeah, like rip the mattress off. You see like old
Yeah.
books and old rate,
Right. No.
so
No.
that's
Yeah.
like the joy of working this way is truly to, be so open about listening to these stories,
Yeah.
and infusing them into the set. And I don't know, that house just spoke to us. And in one part, you always get greedy. It happened to us on Licorice Pizza as well. Like and Gary's house in Licorice Pizza was our first house we scouted. And
Mm,
Paul from San Fernando Valley was like, well, we're gonna find 100 1960s period correct houses. They're everywhere.
sure.
Well, it was COVID, and everybody had started remodeling and demolishing. And in the end, we went back to where we started. And a similar
Okay.
thing happened, like the same thing actually happened to us with Bob's house, was we were like, oh, there must be a cabin. You can throw a rock at a cabin in the redwoods in
Right.
Eureka. Turned out to not really be the case. It was really hard to find a lot of larger homes or more established homes.
Hmm.
So that maybe were perfect, but they weren't enveloped by the redwoods. And in the
Right.
end, it's one of those things where if you're open up to the challenges, like this house was too small to
Sure.
fit an entire film crew and the actors,
Funny.
but we all and we scouted that house probably 11 times. We kept going back to each location, director scouting probably 4 to 5 times each
Okay.
city. And then we would do a technical scout at least 2 to 3 times, a lot of times with camera tests before we shot there. So we also got to like really understand these areas and these environments. And of all of the times, it did not rain as hard as it rained when we filmed that house. And it was a complete mud avalanche. And
Oh, boy.
everybody, was just like such a great team player. Our first AD was outside, like doing the assistant directing, and we were all in like huts outside, and there was like 6 people in the room in there. And then what does that do? It also creates an incredible experience for
Sure.
the actors. And then for us of layering, we ended
Yeah.
up building Willa's bedroom as an attachment in
Mhm.
an old strange closet that the owner was like, sure, absolutely, no problem.
Yeah.
She had a lot of trust in us, it and we purposely built it to look ramshackled and left this blue tarp that the construction team put on there because it was leaking. And it was like, wait, that's exactly what Bob would do. Like he wouldn't
Yeah.
have built it perfectly. Don't touch it.
Right.
So that's the joy of working on location and working with elements that are, you know, in front of you, that you find you have all of these types of discoveries that
Sure.
you didn't have if you weren't there.
Yeah, no, that is amazing. So I have a specific question about that set. So when I guess ICE or whoever we're going to call them, when they discover Bob has an escape tunnel, and there's the shot from inside the tunnel looking up, and you see Lockjaw looking down and the other guardsmen, and there's that beautiful tapestry above it that almost creates a dome effect. And it made me think of a mosque or a holy sacred place. Was that intentional? Like the characters are now on the run, they're leaving their safety nest?
Definitely the way we thought of Bob's room was that it was his room in a
Hmm.
really fun way. Like
Yeah.
Willow doesn't go in there. So
Okay.
Anthony had like a lot of more male, like what were some stuff you had his record
Well, he
collection?
had an amazing record collection, which is one of my things I love picking out each album. And it was kind of, he's got his guitar in there and he's got his little rock collection. He's got a bunch of Willow's artwork that he's saved over the years.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's kind of a hippie, you know,
Right.
he's like, was out in the woods, and that tapestry was like a $20 tapestry. I bought it at a store up in Eureka. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's like Bob's little, yeah, Flo's right. Yeah. Willa doesn't go in Bob's room. It's kind of his little sanctuary space.
Hmm.
But we took the door off of his room because it was like he's always on the
Yeah.
watch in case
Uh,
anything ever happens.
that's
So it
nice.
was a fun. And then also with with the tapestry, like a lot of the details in Bob's house, we also had seen that, I think, in someone else's bedroom in
Hmm.
Eureka. And we're just
Nice.
like, huh.
Yeah.
That's
No, that worked. It really created a dome look, just the geometric pattern of it all. I love that. Can you tell me a little bit about Saint Sergio's apartment, the first floor perfumery, and the Ninja Academy? Those sets were amazing.
Sensei's dojo is an empty storefront in El Paso that used to be a cars sales part, I think. So we were able to build the whole dojo there. And then Sensei's apartment on our first scout to El Paso, Paul and I went to the perfumeria shop that had stairs leading up. And I'd say that's the balance of the sets in this film. 50% of them are, you can't recreate this, don't touch anything.
Hmm.
And then the other is how do we fold now that incredible character into the rest of the sets and into the story. So um, we really wanted his apartment to be upstairs, and there turned out to be an entire corner on the second floor of that storefront facades that had been gutted because of the fire.
Okay.
And it was an incredible feat and team effort of going, can we do this? Can we build a, 60-foot hallway with 8 attached apartments that have been hollowed out by Sensei in order to create this communal family experience that they walk through? And we worked with a local architect and scout who helped us with all of the engineering, and we went for it. So it was an
Yeah.
amazing thing because it created a real labyrinth that went from historic storefront El Paso through his family store up the stairs into where they house all the immigrants that they're helping, into a doorway into this hallway,
Right.
and then through the doors of Sensei's family, which you get to meet, and then through the flower shop to the rooftops, or for Sensei, down the trap door to on his mission. So, and we got to the concept of the fact that these apartments were connected was scripted. It was something that Paul had envisioned. This thing where the walls were blown out and they lived communally. But the general concept of who these family characters were came from the Segundo Barrio in El Paso, which is where that means the second neighborhood in Spanish. And it's where immigrant families move when they come into the United States. And we found a link of apartments where each apartment was a different style of family. It was a mom with 4 children, or a bachelor, or a grandmama, and the way that they treated each space, even though each space was identical, really spoke to us. And that allowed Anthony to just kick off onto another level of greatness, because this is one of like the best sets that I've ever walked into. And for Paul and for all these actors, it was really a like Alice in Wonderland portal of just the layers of realism. And I have to also speak quickly towards my team, my art department, that, is like the importance of imperfection and over painting. And we used all real wood and tile and materials in order to get to that level of realism. And it really was an incredible experience to walk in the day that we put in, not even just even through rehearsal when we first started working with Benicio, who walked into the perfumeria shop and immediately cast all the real people that own that store as his family. He was like, okay, you're my auntie, you run the cashier, you and like he
Wow.
just took off into inspiration. So, but I know Anthony has like the amount of detailing and love and attention that went into shaping these spaces is like something I'll always hold very dear to me in the process, in an artistic
But what
process
he's
of
not telling you is everything in that apartment came through a window. So that the stairs for that apartment were so steep that you couldn't get anything up the stairs. So construction took out a window,
Wow.
and all the lumber had to be petty boned through the window, and then they actually built the set inside the space. And every piece of furniture, then the lighting equipment, the cameras, everything came through a window, and then
Wow.
back out a window. So you had to be
and how,
careful to
yeah.
make sure the furniture that you pick out and the pieces that you're getting, make sure that they fit through a window. The guys were having to take stuff apart and then reconstruct it up once it got through the window. But yeah, a whole set through a window.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so did you source not only at like Facebook Marketplace and thrift stores, did you also reach out to people in the community and rent some of their stuff?
We did. I had sent a team to El Paso probably a good month and a half before to prep and start shopping with the whole crew and start filling up a warehouse with.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Facebook Marketplace. It was running from the community. We brought nothing from LA. It was all done out of El Paso, and it was fun because you would just walk around. You go into somebody's house and it's like this perfect thing, and you're like, "Oh, can I rent that?" And they're like, "Oh no, you just take it." Like they
Yeah.
were so giving, and I spent a little bit of time prepping down there, which was just great because you see things that you never could have imagined to create,
Mhm.
and then the community was so amazing. An interesting story is the piece of art behind Leonardo's head in his couch, that tiger
Right.
print, was a piece of art that I had bought at a thrift store months in advance, and it was a panther, and we loved it, but I could never clear it. We didn't know who the artist was, and I tried for months with Warner Brothers to clear it, and finally, I had met an artist named Tino in El Paso, and I met him down in the corner outside of Sensei's apartment and handed him the painting. And I said, "Can you just, it was a panther at first." And I go, "Can you just alter it a little bit, make it yours? But I love the painting how it is, just change it a little bit so that we can clear it." And he goes, "No problem." And then he came back like 3 or 4 days later and handed it to me. And it was so different. It was not only a panther, now it was a tiger. And the colors are totally different. I'm like, oh my God. But it ended up being so much better than before. And that was kind of one of those awesome surprises that just kind of happened in El Paso. It was great. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And I
Now,
love details, just like looking at this playback of just who Sensei is. A lot of
Yeah.
the times in this film, in a wonderful way, we get introduced to people and then we don't see them again as well,
Mhm.
like the sisters and Sensei. And it's such a quick look into his world of who is this bachelor dojo teacher who lives, who likes martial arts and working out and his cowboy boots and his business, and like all of those details are,
Right.
within his collection of, you know, Superman toys and like bicycles and Zen Buddhas. It's just like it was just there was like so much attention to character.
Right.
The aquariums with no animals in them just because they're groovy. And I have to say too, something really important is a lot of the times, I feel like we say this, it's a goal I feel like of shared with a lot of production designers and set decorators that environments are as 360 as possible. But in this case, in this film, that really was throughout something that we wanted to give to Paul and the actors for liberty of camera and character to be able to be fully immersed in these spaces. And so everywhere, from the alarms to the light switches, the ceiling fans, the refrigerators were all working and fully
Mhm.
stocked. And so another great story is when we were doing rehearsal, as Sensei is getting to know his space, he went to the fridge to the apartment next door and opened it, and there was cold Modelo beers, and handed one to Bob, and he snapped one open, and then that was a big part of the story in the script. So
Yeah.
you don't know where those discoveries are going to be. So it's always amazing to have the ability to plan for the unknown.
Right. Right.
I think that started off early. One of the first days of filming was Leonardo in the history class with the teacher.
Mhm.
And it was never scripted, but it was US history. So I put, pictures of presidents up on the wall. And Leo started improvising based off of the dressing that was in the set.
Wow.
So we learned very on that Paul kind of wanted to create this freedom to kind of let the actors do what they want. So everything just had to be ready. Like it was, no matter what set we went into, everything was, drawers were filled, refrigerators were stocked, everything was working. Like, because you never knew what was going to happen,
Sure.
and also creating that environment for the actors. Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful. There's another set that's a stark contrast to that, which is the Christmas Adventurers Club. And that kind of illustrates the magic trick you guys pulled off. Because I heard that the exterior of the house was the Reagan mansion. And then you built the set, the interior, with the diorama and the Pullman car feel. And then, so that was on stage, right, in LA?
So that was a stitch between, we were in Sacramento and realized we needed to do that scene. So we started to scout
Okay.
classic American homes. And the one that spoke to us the most happened to be the Reagan Mansion,
Wow.
who, what spoke to us more so than that was that they had a basement with a hidden door behind a sepia toned mural that led to their safe room.
Yeah.
So already it was like, okay, this is, life is stranger than fiction, like fantastic. So that allowed us to stitch to, it's actually a second floor hallway in Stockton in an auditorium that we, um, you know, did some modifications in order for it to look like an underground tunnel that
Mhm.
we've then recreated partially. You can see a little bit outside this photo as the entrance into this underground bunker, which the concept was, you know, in order for it to really feel like we were below ground. It's all artificially lit, and these gentlemen needed something beautiful to look at while they were doing their meetings. So, what more than like the perfect representation of the American West? So that's a little bit of how we got here, and like the
Yeah.
molding details. We're always like, I think that was the consistent thing with this whole film was like, how do we ground even this in reality? um, that was 100% based on fiction. And this is based on, I think, a Michigan molding company that redoes basements and rumpus rooms with this exact style of like drop ceiling,
Mhm.
heavy-handed molding. And you go, well, you can't make that up. That's pretty fantastic. So, we just listened to that and went into that direction. And then Anthony, I think, brilliantly, he Paul was really attracted to the Pullman train car shape and scale, that it wasn't this super grand room. So I think going with that repetitive form of the same chair gave lent to the eerie feeling of what happens in this room, and kind of let the audience have some space to not know the full, to fill in.
Right. Yeah, it's great. It makes me laugh every time I see it too. There was the climactic car chase scene, and I understand that you guys kind of discovered it, Florencia, on a scout, and we're just in the car and just like, oh wow,
Yeah.
this is special. Could you tell me about that moment?
Yeah, we had just left the camp that we called 1776, where Willa, gets dropped off by Avanti. And we were taking the long road back to Borrego Springs. So we were doing a big loop, and we knew we had a big ending finale in a desert road. And we've been scouting up towards Bishop and all through the Anza Borrego, Ocotillo Wells area. And suddenly, when we turned onto this road, it started to undulate to what Paul called the River of Hills. And he took out his phone. I started recording from the back window, and you couldn't deny that this had just an incredible tension and sense of suspense, that you would, rise and fall and lose the
Yeah.
cars. And then an hour and a half away, this is the Texas dip. This felt like just an amazing punctuation to end this moment. And it took a lot of tests and work. That road runs north south and east west.
Mm,
Special rigs. This film was shot on VistaVision cameras, and trying to get that camera as low to the ground as possible. And in in overall, I think the most amazing thing too is this entire film crew. We were always trying to go for what was the best location or the best set or the best car for the story. So
mhm,
there was a very challenging shoot. Like this location, which is called the Reef in Ocotillo Wells. The only access was like a mile in with like sandy dirt roads. So to
mm,
to get to this point, to tow everything in, put everyone in specialty vehicles, um, have different vista viewpoints in order to get these shots. But everyone was very committed. Our locations team, in having to find also, just a huge logistical challenge of where do you put everyone working in heat, working
yeah.
in places you don't shoot in normally. But yeah, back to the River of Hills, it just was such a dynamic road. And then Paul took all that footage and all that emotion and wrote the ending of the film. So
Mm, that's amazing. Another one of the great standout sets, well, there's so many of them, but the Sisters of the Brave Beaver was filmed at La Parissa Mission. So I
Appreciate
understand that, yeah, it was tough finding a mission, wasn't it?
very much so.
Yeah.
Paul had a beautiful painting of a decrepit mission in the valley. I think it was the San Fernando Valley mission, but all of the missions throughout California have been restored beautifully, and
Mhm.
are mainly under the Catholic diocese. So
Yeah.
they quite fit the story of these women that had chosen to live together in community in a, remote mountainous area. And so we looked for over a year. Our locations team did two or three huge searches of all different types of properties, like not even only missions.
Mm,
And when we did the mission trail scout, we went to 6 or 7 missions, and one of these was La Purísima, and they are run by the California Parks. And we're open to us, turning this into, our Sisters of the Brave Beaver. And it turned out to be an amazing, challenging location, but also just gave us that footprint that Paul was looking for, because it was really important for him to have the chapel for that scene when Willa and Lockjaw meet. So we definitely were trying to, uh, be resourceful and find something that, he had
Yeah,
in mind.
it worked great. Anthony, I felt a lot of love from you and your team as far as the characters, the way their environments were represented. And you showed a lot of respect for everybody. It didn't matter who they were. And so what were some of the things that you found that really, I know it's like when you're at a thrift store somewhere and you find that piece and you just go like, wow. Whether they were seen on camera or not, what were some of the things that really resonated with you throughout this process?
I think it was just by pure discovery. I mean, it was the joy of it was going to all these cities and getting out and shopping, and you find local artists.
Yeah.
I mean, you go into record stores in Eureka or El Paso, and you start picking out albums for the characters, and that was the fun part, was just getting out and going to places that we normally don't film at, and everybody was so open to it, and so helpful that you just drive around and you stop in little shops and you just find things, and that was that was the fun part, and that's usually when you start to build the characters, is through just getting out, and you just go shopping and you find things. Oh, that would be cool for Bob, or that would be cool for Sensei. An interesting thing in La Purísima, which you don't see in the film, is that we created a humongous hemp farm.
Okay.
And you don't see it, but that was a challenge in itself. I mean, I don't know how many hemp plants we brought in, but 400 hemp plants.
Oh, wow.
Rooms, the whole outside was covered in hemp plants. We had a hemp specialist, and it was they're very picky plants. You got to be protected. They were brought in from a different location, and you don't see it in the movie, but that was one of the many challenges. I think also is that when you work on a Paul Thomas Anderson movie, is that for me as a decorator, what I learned is that nothing's perfect. It can't look. I mean, that was the biggest thing, is that Flo mentioned, is some locations we go in and Paul was like, "Don't touch a thing," and then, but a lot of them were full dresses to where you had to make it seem seamless, to where you couldn't tell what was a set and what was real. And it was training my whole team too. It was like we kind of would start and dress it how we're kind of trained, and then start to deconstruct it. You know what I mean? Because nothing. I mean, one of the most beautiful shots is Paul will shoot a blank white wall with nothing on it in the Pancho Villa room at the Sisters, where Willa is kept. It's a blank white wall. I mean, we've been trained, you put a piece of art on it, but not Paul. I mean, nothing could, everything had to look real. And I think that just comes with, going to these cities where people would invite you into their houses, and you would see things, how do they live? And you go into El Paso and you'd find, people were so welcoming that it's a lot of research and building those layers to build those characters. So it was just a really rewarding and fun experience. So something that,
Yeah. And I have to say, like, to add on to that, what you were talking about, specialists, we ended up finding specialists in every city because we had to work with ham radios or hemp plants or immigration. And so we went to the local church in the Segundo Barrio, who opened their doors to us to learn, they sleep on mats, and the children, when they come, paint drawings. Like, can we on a set? Absolutely. And so, like, when you go upstairs to Sensei's apartment and they're saying, "We got to go, ICE is coming," or "the raids are coming," what's on the walls is this depiction of American flags and families, and like those were created by those children.
Wow.
And throughout, it's such a rewarding experience to be able to lean on a community or an expert and say, how does a ham radio work? Where do you get these parts? Who are you communicating with? What do you say on these radios?
Right.
And the fact that, like, our specialist in Eureka's voice is at the end, giving the message to Willa.
Yeah.
Set that up, with all the cables and all the radios and the fact that you have to have that cable that goes through the window, so the window has to be open. I don't know, all of that. You just, if you're open and you start to just pick up on all of these notes and details that how much that they influence your work,
Yeah.
and how much that you can share that then, you know.
Yeah.
Mm.
Was there one set or logistical challenge that kept you up at night?
I think
Or should I say which one?
I think the
Wow,
whole
that's
thing was
so big.
oh my God, like I never had so many I mean we yeah, it was a lot. I mean, because we were stuck in these cities that, I mean, you order an Amazon package and it comes like 6 days later. Like you can't get things quickly. And a lot of times, Paul would come in a day or two before filming and he'd rehearse with the actors. And then you get notes and you're like, oh my God, like how am I gonna find that? Like I'm stuck in nowhere. And luckily we just pulled it off. It's like you just reach out to the resources you have in the city and people are more willing to help. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of business because logistically it was a challenge. I mean, me and Flo, like I probably spent 3 weeks, 4 weeks at the most together once we started filming.
Wow.
It was just a lot of Zoom calls and a lot of to try to communicate. Yeah, it was logistically hard, really hard.
Everything was like in camera too. So I'm just thinking, like when you asked that question, we we did the opening at the end of the film, and we had only 3 weeks to prep that. And we wanted to be really respect what these detention camps were that we had been reading about that were happening, have been happening through US history for a long time. So that was like based on a news article from 10 or 15 years ago. And I'm thinking of the amazing constant list of things that you have in your head of not only the layout and where Lockjaw is and where his trailer is and how Perfidia is going to get to him, but how the locks work and how they're going to cut the chain link fence and where the explosions are going to come from and the trucks that were practical that stopped working at 6 p.m. that we had to find more to drive through, and the way the locks worked for the truck and we were loading people practically onto a semi trailer, and how do we do that safely and what do they have to hold on to. And so Anthony's rigging these like fishing net kind of safety lines and then using actual generators that were used in those camps to light the entire set. But it's such a joy. Like, so it keeps you up at night, and it was hard, but it was also just, I don't know, from start to finish, just such an incredible way of working. And also with the rest of the heads of our departments, like to be with special effects and stunts and, so much conversations about how does Bob fall from a tree? How do you rig a tree? How do you use a real tree that's stuck between an alley and El Paso and make this work? And
Wow.
yeah, so that it all kept us up, but it was all very satisfying.
I guess it was really one set after another.
Yes. It really was to the end. Work so many payphones.
Yeah, I know. Missed the payphones.
To try to make them look different. You're like, oh my God, how do I make this payphone look different than the last one?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you guys pulled it off. Anthony, is there any one of your crew or vendors or filming communities that you'd like to recognize? Take a moment.
Yeah, I mean, my lead man Tyler Kettenberg and the buyers Sammy and Helen Tell, Walter Martinez, Sarah Gardner Gale, all the set dressers, the Bouchers and Corey Gomez, and then Warner Brothers Property, Hollywood Studio Gallery, Hollywood Cinema Arts, Omega Cinema Props. Yeah, I mean, all the vendors are great. I mean, yeah, I'd be stuck in the middle of nowhere and need something last minute, and it was on a plane the next day. So,
Florencia, how about you? You must have had a massive team for this.
No, it's like something when we started this conversation that when we first read the script and everything exploded. We were like, oh, this is the big budget film, right?
Yeah.
So this is a big budget. Anthony definitely has worked on some incredible, amazing films that have had huge scales and stunts and, needing multiples and action. Well, even though it seemingly seems like we had a large budget, by the time, it's an expensive film to produce with like travel and everything. So actually, it was, I feel like almost the same structure and scale as Licorice Pizza, and
Wow.
definitely in concept of how to work. Like Paul likes to work with as little people as possible on set and really focused teams. And so I have to really a lot of respect and love for my team who took on that challenge of saying it was our supervising art director, Andrew Max Kahn, who, like Tyler, our lead man, kind of held the fort in
Yeah.
LA. And then we had two art directors, May Mitchell and AJ Cisneros, who bounced back and forth between
You are
cities.
director. That was it? And
Directors,
supervising. That's amazing.
Olivia Ferguson, who's basically my right hand. We were at every location together, and a set designer, Chris Kortner, and our graphic designer, Carrie Hyatt, and we were joined later on by Hillary. So it was a very tight team, and I'm very fortunate that, everybody understood what needed to get done
Right.
because, like what Anthony said, every single set was touched. And then in El Paso, our architect Bill Helm and scout Jacob Senna, our locations team, and
Location.
then our constructions team, which Anthony Syracuse, who we built we built on stage in two parts, halfway through the film and at the end.
Mhm.
And so just running the logistics of saying some cities like Sacramento are going to be smaller teams, some cities like El Paso are going to have full support, but we still blew up a bank in
I
Sacramento.
know.
So
Crazy. Crazy.
it's just it was, yeah, incredible and very thankful, and thankful to also all these communities who opened the doors to us and allowed us to really be enriched and inspired by them.
Well, you took us on an amazing journey. I loved it. I can't wait to see the film again. I've seen it like a bunch of times now. So thank you for taking us on this epic journey and bringing fun back to the theaters. This has been another episode of Inside the Set with Set Decor. Thank you, Anthony Carlino and Florencia Martin, so much for joining us to talk about your wonderful film, One Battle After Another.
Thanks, John.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Inside the Set with Set Decor. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website, setdecor.com.